Greetings, fellow moviegoers, and welcome to Movie Central, the place to talk about movies, TV shows based on movies, toys based on movies, games based on movies, and rides based on movies. I'm your host, Mr. CCS, and this is my pet gorilla, George. Marvel Animation. In Marvel's history, several animated productions based on their comics were released. Some of them weren't really good, but they were the first ever real comic based animated shows Marvel ever did. Marvel Animation didn't truly kick off until the 90s rolled around, when shows like X-Men, Spider-Man, The Incredible Hulk, Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer, and Iron Man were released. But after that initial run, and some failed shows like Avengers United They Stand, Marvel kind of stepped away from animated shows. That is until 2008, when they returned to form and created The Spectacular Spider-Man, the best Spider-Man property ever created. Seriously, this show is just so good. And with that success, Marvel Animation decided to produce a show focusing on the characters from the movies that were coming out, but with a distinct art style and comic book series adapted in the best way possible. Fans and critics seem to love the show and are disappointed that it was canceled too soon. What are my thoughts on it? We're going to find out today. This is The Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. And there came a day unlike any other, when Earth's mightiest heroes found themselves united against a common threat. On that day, they became the Avengers. The invincible armored Iron Man, voiced by Eric Loomis. Thor, Prince of Thunder, voiced by Rick Wasserman. The Hulk, strongest hero there is, voiced by Fred Tatasciore. And Captain America, the first Avenger, voiced by Brian Bloom. With the help of many others, they defend the Earth as its mightiest heroes. Yeah, I'm aware that this is a TV show, but seeing as how it was released around the same time the MCU was getting popular, I had to bring it up. There are some ties to the MCU made with character designs, such as Iron Man being modeled after Robert Downey Jr., who of course played him in the movies, and Nick Fury being modeled after Samuel L. Jackson, who played him in the movies. Captain America's costume had a very similar design, and S.H.I.E.L.D. helped form the Avengers as well. Sort of. Well, they back them up, but that's beyond the point. I find this easily to be one of the best Marvel cartoons, and one of my favorite shows, period. But what makes this show so great? Let's find out. Seeing as how I watched this show at a young age, this was my first introduction to a lot of these characters. While Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America aren't as good as their movie counterparts, neither is the Hulk for that matter, I still love them to pieces. I mean, Iron Man is just great and one of the best versions of the character by far. Thor is good from beginning to end. The Hulk is absolutely brilliant, with the man and monster concept not being abandoned, and Captain America's arcs were just perfect overall. That being said, while I don't prefer the main four Avengers that are listed in the intro over their movie counterparts, a lot of the other Avengers are much better than their movie counterparts. Ant-Man and the Wasp are the perfect examples. For one, they are the original versions, Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, who actually were Avengers originally when the comics first started running. And their bond is one of the funniest ones in any media I've ever seen. Seriously, go back and watch the show if you want to see this incredible bond, performed brilliantly by Wally Wingert and Colleen O'Shaughnessy. Black Panther, as I mentioned in my review of his solo movie back a year ago, hashtag shameless plug, is better than the movie counterpart as he is great in this show. James C. Mathis III delivered an incredible performance throughout his time on this show. As a matter of fact, his sacrifice made in the Kree arc in Season 2 was so heroic. Yes, I know he doesn't die, but it was a very big sacrifice. I mean, yeah, I still love Chadwick Boseman's portrayal, but this is just my favorite version of the Black Panther as a whole. Carol Danvers, who is Miss Marvel in this show, Not Captain Marvel. Oh, no, 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 no. This was years before she became Captain Marvel, and Miss Marvel Kamala Khan was not existent. Yes, guys, I still have not seen the Miss Marvel Disney Plus show, but once I do, I will review it eventually. I will review all the Disney Plus shows eventually. But I have to say, Miss Marvel in this show was great, and a far superior portrayal compared to Brie Larson, who has only one real standout performance, which wasn't that great to begin with. Jennifer Hale, on the other hand, a professional voice actress, did a great job voicing the character and gave one of the best performances in animation I've seen in a while. Her character arc throughout the show was so much better than the Danvers we got in the MCU, it's not even funny. As for Vision and Hawkeye, I give them a tie for comparison to the movies. Well, Hawkeye, I give a real big tie, and Vision, I give a tie to his movie version and not WandaVision's version. But I will say this about Hawkeye. This version was the one that introduced me to the great charismatic character that I expect him to be in any media, and I'm glad the MCU is starting to adapt the dry, charismatic version of Hawkeye. As for Vision, I like the one who's like very, dark and serious and pretty much knowledgeable, and not Jarvis, by the way, but I'm just getting off track at this point. Anyways, while the heroes are great, there are a lot of villains that are so good. Well, we have the likes of the Masters of Evil, Ultron, and Kang the Conqueror. The best villains of the show, to me, by far, are the Skrulls. They have one of the best arcs in the entire show, which breaks my heart that the movies did not do them justice. I won't spoil too much, but I must say, the Kree Skrull War arc was great, and a prime example of storytelling in an animated show. We'll get to that in a minute. Speaking of animation, I love the style so much. It creates a unique style that nobody can replicate perfectly except for the creators and animators. All of the characters have distinct designs and resemble the characters that we all love from the comics. I mean, I especially love the original design for Wasp. It's so cool. I also love the design for Iron Man, Captain America, and Hulk. They just look so great. As for the music, it was also really great. I mean, seriously. The opening theme song, Fight as One by Bad City, is one of the best opening songs to any TV show I've heard. And if you haven't heard it, please take your time to listen to it. It is just so great. The rest of the score is pretty good and gives all the emotions and senses needed to feel. Now, before we go, I like to give you my favorite episodes of the show personally for me. So, yeah, these are my 5 favorite episodes and arcs of the show. Number 5, Michael Korvac. An episode focusing on a man experimented on by the Kree and turned into a psychopathic monster. This episode features a great use of the Guardians of the Galaxy and a great performance from Troy Baker as Korvac himself. Give it a watch. 4, To Steal an Ant-Man. An episode focusing on Scott Lang's transformation from criminal to superhero. I have to say, I love the blueprints it gave to the 2015 live-action version. Great performance from Crispin Freeman as Scott Lang, as well as great use of Power Man and Iron Fist. Much better than their live-action counterparts for sure. Number 3. Yes, the entire Skrull arc. Special heads up to the episodes Who Do You Trust, Prisoner of War, and of course, I have to mention the foreshadowing made by Kang in his episodes. Yes, that is an honorable mention. I know I'm cheating on this one a bit by putting the entire Kree Skrull War arc on this list, but seriously, this is one of the best TV arcs ever, and the best arc in the entire series. I fully recommend it. It takes up a little bit of season 1 and an entire half of the second season, and it really is worth it. No spoilers here, just give it a freaking watch. Number 2, Gamma World. I really like what this did, as it showcases the Avengers turning into Gamma mutants, leading to Hawkeye teaming up with the Hulk. I also love that all the Hulk villains show up, including the leader as the main villain voiced by Jeffrey Combs, who also voiced 2 terrifying villains previously in animation, the Scarecrow and the Rat King, and the Abomination. And seeing as this how was going to be a Hulk show first, I really think this would have been a good pilot to an animated show based on the Hulk. But we already have a really good Hulk animated show, so I'd say give this episode and its second part a watch. But number one, Deadliest Man Alive. The perfect story for a Hulk solo movie. Take notes, Kevin Feige. Hulk is captured and is manipulated into looking bad, leading to Red Hulk taking his place. And it also showcases how brave Captain America is, even going as far as betraying his own team to save a fellow Avenger, just because he wanted to clear his name. Definitely give this episode a watch if you have a chance, as it is my favorite episode of the entire show and one of my favorite episodes in TV, period. So yeah, I freaking love this show. Not only is it one of my favorite Marvel cartoons and one of my favorite cartoons, period, but it's also one of my favorite shows, period. If you haven't watched this show yet, feel free to check it out on Disney Plus when you have the chance. The show obviously earns a 10 out of 10. Avengers Assemble. Well, that's it for this review. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments section below and tune in next week for another surprise. With that said, my name is Mr. CCS, this is Movie Central, and that, my friends, is a wrap. See you next week.